So what kind of case do we got this month?
We gotta start with the Supreme Court. I mean, if nothing else, United States v. Texas, which I don't want to be, dramatic, but like Supreme Court decided not to just tank humanity, at least in the immigration context. Can't speak for some of its other decisions, but United States v. Texas, it's all about standing, but really upheld a president's ability to exercise prosecutorial discretion through the Department of Homeland Security when it comes to immigration enforcement, which is a completely not extreme or novel position to hold. But yet there is a dissent, written by Justice Kavanaugh. So, one of those cross-party line things too. And it's essentially is saying that immigration prosecutors have the same discretion as federal criminal prosecutors, and that is they have the discretion about who to prosecute, who to detain, and who not to. And yeah, we're dealing with agencies rather than constitutional issues of criminal law, but I would like to think that the Department of Homeland Security officers also want to have justice as their core principle, as NEA USA would tell you is their core principle when it comes to prosecuting cases and exercising their discretion. So Supreme Court said that is possible and they can do that, upheld the Mayorkas memo about enforcement priorities. Justice Alito wanted to say that because the statute uses shall, it seems, I guess, every non-citizen possible under the statute must be detained and can't get a bond and must be, prosecuted without any nuance. It's a world I don't want to live in, and not just because of immigration, but just because, they're human beings.
Yeah.
We're human beings. If you lose discretion and the ability to look at a whole person, then you just are a robot. That's not really the decision.
Yeah.
but that's more of a rant. The decision's about standing. The Supreme Court said that Texas and Louisiana don't have standing to force the executive to prosecute, to do something, which is also not a very controversial position. The quote that I like that I said on the show, my podcast, was a telling indication of the severe constitutional problems with the state's assertion of standing is the lack of historical precedent supporting it. And they had nothing. There's the EPA decision, it was in Massachusetts v. EPA from Admin Law 101, where essentially, and I'm digging way back, but I think the states kind of forced the Bush administration EPA to start regulating carbon emissions in cars, but it was meaningfully different for the court, and I think that's a plurality decision anyway. Point is the states can't force the executive to enforce immigration law, at least in the prosecutorial discretion context.
Immigration is a federal thing. It's one of those specific things, kind of like foreign policy or war and stuff like that. They can't tell the president to invade this or get involved with that kind of stuff. I didn't read the decision. I kind of make up my own armchair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a bit. I think it's a bit less than that because depending on the decision, depending on how we want to frame it. But at base, we're just talking about agencies. Even though it's people, even though there's constitutional concerns. I mean, EOIR, DHS are agencies, so theoretically, all of these decisions coming out that permits these lawsuits and whittles down the administrative state, like what they just did in the Clean Water Act case, like what they did in the West Virginia case, also applies to immigration. And of course, next term, they're going to destroy the Chevron doctrine. So it all should apply. So it's not as maybe crazy to get states to try to get the federal government to do something with its administrative agencies. But to the Supreme Court, I think they saw this more as trying to get prosecutors to prosecute, and that you can't do.